All right, everyone, welcome. Thanks so much for joining me today. This is our first time trying to do a live stream planetarium. I am here in my apartment in Jersey City to try and take you on a tour of the three planets that you can see in the morning sky, not only tomorrow morning, but pretty much for the entire month of April. So a few things. I do want to first mention I see a couple of you have been to our planetarium before, so thanks so much. We usually do our shows from the Jennifer Tulsi Planetarium, which some of you may know is the biggest one in the entire Western Hemisphere. So yay! And again, I'm going to be hopefully trying to answer as many questions as I can as they're showing up in the Facebook stream. So please feel free to ask questions. If I miss yours, don't worry. We're going to try and answer all of them. I'll answer as many as I can during the live stream today. But if not, if I can't get to all of them, I do apologize, and then we will make sure that someone on our team will get you an answer as a comment right here in the stream. So it seems like I have people from all over viewing today, lots of schools, lots of families. So again, welcome to everyone. I don't think I've said my name yet. I'm Chrysta, and I am one of the planetarium educators at Liberty Science Center. So let's go ahead and get started taking a look at the planets that you're going to be able to see in the morning sky. So this is actually a program. It's called Stellarium. And Stellarium is a free software. You can actually download this yourself if you want to explore some of the objects we're taking a look at. And while there's plenty of things that you can see in the sky, I am going to be focusing, at least for now, on the three planets. So you've been looking at the sky here for a little bit. I'm wondering if you can guess which of these dots here are the three planets you can see. So while you're maybe trying to guess which one are those planets, I am going to point out a couple of the other things you can see here in our sky. So I do have the date. Obviously today is Thursday. This has already happened, but this is going to be pretty much the same thing from tomorrow and again all throughout April. So what you need to do in order to see these planets is to go outside. You can see it's pretty early. You do have to wake up before the sun rises. And you might see a big red S on there. That is, of course, showing us the south. I'll move my face out of the way a little bit, and you can see the east right next to my face. So basically, to see our planets, you're going to need to look to the southeast. If you need a little help figuring out where southeast even is, you can, of course, go outside, find the Big Dipper. The last two stars in the cup of the Big Dipper point you right to the North Star. And once you find the North Star, just turn yourself all the way around. You'll be facing south, and our planets are going to be a little bit to the left. So I do see a question real quick. Where is the sun? If that is referring to the sky that we're looking at here, the sun has not come up yet. So this is about an hour or so before sunrise. So I do see a good guess of the planets. I'm going to go ahead and start our video. This was made with our planetarium software called Digistar. So once you have found your directions a little bit before the sunrise, what I'm going to do is focus on the three planets. So first off, pretty much it's going to circle each of our planets, and then we're going to take a tour through not only across the planet itself, but from a couple different aspects as well. So starting with the really bright one, it seems like a couple of you have guessed that. I saw Rosa guess the big bright one, so good job. This indeed is the planet Jupiter. So the reason that Jupiter is so bright is because it's really, really big. And we are going to take a flight along with a spacecraft called Juno. Juno is currently studying Jupiter. It's basically taken a 6-month-long orbit, gets really close to the planet. Sorry if that was a little squiggly for you there. But we're going to fly alongside Juno right up to the biggest planet in our entire solar system. Jupiter is My favorite planet. It's pretty great. You might notice it's very faint, but there are actually rings around Jupiter. Saturn's not the only planet that has rings. All of the gas giant planets have rings around them. So all of that you're looking at here at Jupiter, we do call it a gas giant because it's really big and it's mostly made of gas. Jupiter does have a very thick atmosphere. And I saw how far away is Jupiter. Jupiter is about 500 million miles away from Earth. I don't remember the exact distance away from the sun. We're about 93 million miles away from the sun, but I do remember Jupiter is about 500 million miles away from us. So, oh, where's the red spot? So that was at the very beginning of our tour around Jupiter. I'm going to try to back up a little bit and pause this right here so you can see the great red spot is actually looking right at you. That's one of the most well-known features of Jupiter. It's basically a giant storm, like a big hurricane, and our entire Earth could fit inside of it. And that storm is about 400 years old. It's very old, very big. Scientists are still trying to figure out how it is still going, right? It's a really, really long time for a hurricane, which is pretty similar to what it is. I saw another question, why is Jupiter these different colors? So you may notice the stripes all around Jupiter there. That's because, again, it is a gas giant planet, and it's kind of similar to the winds that we have here on Earth. The stripes are basically wind going in different directions. As the planet spins around, Jupiter is actually the fastest spinning planet in our solar system, which might make no sense because it's so big, right? 1,300 Earths could fit inside of Jupiter, but it's going really fast. And that spin does help the wind kind of create those stripes. So just for time's sake, I'm going to keep going. We're going to talk about our next thing. If there's more questions, like I said, at the end, I'll try to take some time to go back through and see if I missed any questions. But what we're looking at here, these are 4 of Jupiter's moons. But Jupiter does have more than 4 moons. It has quite a few. It has about 79. So these 4 that we're focusing on here, these are the 4 largest moons of Jupiter. They are called the Galilean Moons, which might tell you who discovered them, Galileo. Now we're going to fly up to one of them. This is a moon called Ganymede. And the reason we're flying up to Ganymede, I just kind of picked this one. It's the biggest moon in the solar system. You might see all of those different splotches and cracks. Ganymede is covered in a lot of craters, things that have just kind of bumped into the surface of the moon. And there's little grooves that have actually come. We do think there's an ocean under the surface, and water at some point has kind of come out and created little grooves on the surface of that moon. So again, quick little tour of Jupiter, and then we're going to go ahead and move to the next one. And I did see someone, I think Monica, ask how far away this planet is. So this is the planet Mars. Mars is about 135 million miles away from us. It takes about 6 months to fly to Mars. And basically, if we sent astronomers to Mars, it would take them about 2 years being in space. So as we are flying up to Mars here, we're going to take a look at a couple of the features of Mars's surface. And we're going to fly pretty much right through a giant canyon. Now, this might seem a lot like our Grand Canyon here on Earth. It is pretty similar, probably formed in a similar way. But this canyon, as we're flying through it, imagine basically flying through the entire country. So this canyon here, it's called Mariner Valley. It is as big as our entire United States. It would stretch from California all the way to New York. And in some places, it's about 3 miles deep. So very large feature here, which is interesting. I've always thought because Mars is only about half the size as Earth. So it does have these large features on it. Now, Mars does not have an active inside like Earth. It doesn't have tectonic plates and things, but it does have volcanoes. So you might be able to spot a few of them here, and we're actually going to take a flight up to the biggest volcano in the entire solar system. We like to look at the biggest things here in our quick little tour. So we are flying up to a volcano called Olympus Mons. This volcano is about 3 times taller than Mount Everest. Would pretty much cover all of France if we brought this volcano to Earth. It is not active anymore. Mars does not have volcanoes erupting, anything like that. I'm going to take a little pause and just see if I have any questions. I have a lot of questions. This is awesome. I'm so happy that I'm getting a lot of questions. We've got a lot of interest because the planets are really awesome. There's a lot to talk about. So I'm going to just take a quick little look and see if I can find any quick questions. So, oh, Erica, yeah, great. So we did think that we found a lake of liquid water about a mile below the south pole of Mars. So we haven't found any liquid water on the surface, but we think there's a lake of salty water underground, and we have found evidence that there was water in the past. If you're curious about that, look up blueberries on Mars. I know that sounds kind of silly, but it's a specific type of rock, and that's one of the big pieces of evidence that we have. So, okay, so I'm just going to keep going again. Sorry, lots of questions. Really excited. I'm going to do my best to try and get to as many as I can. But just for sake of taking a look at our planets here, we're going to take a tour of the third planet you can see in the morning sky. This is a lot of favorites that I hear. So this is the planet Saturn, the one that we think of as having rings. Now, the reason that we can see Saturn's rings as opposed to Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune is because Saturn's rings are made of chunks of ice. Right? The other 3 gas giant planets have rings mostly made of rock, and rock's not very bright and shiny, but ice is super reflective. So you can see as we're flying through the rings here, the rings of Saturn are made of millions of chunks of these ice. Most of them are quite small, tiny. They can be as small as a grain of sand. Some of them can be as big as a house, though. But not only are there pieces of ice there, so this data has actually come from a spacecraft called Cassini. It's not there anymore, but it spent about 13 years studying Saturn, and it actually discovered in the rings there are moons. So Cassini actually found 4 moons in the rings of Saturn. That was a really exciting discovery. We just flew, if you were able to see, past one. It's a tiny moon called Pan. I think it looks like a submarine. I love Pan. And not only did Cassini study the rings of Saturn, it also sent a probe to another moon. So Saturn actually has now the most moons in the solar system. This one here is its largest. It's called Titan. Titan here is another really large moon in the solar system. Both this one and Ganymede are bigger than Mercury. So only 2 moons that are larger than that. The reason that Titan looks kind of cloudy is because it does have an atmosphere. This is actually the only moon in our solar system with an atmosphere around it. NASA did announce, hopefully in the future, one of the next missions will be to go back to Titan and learn more about the surface of that moon. So, like I mentioned, I do want to take a quick round back to when I mentioned that Saturn has the most moons. For a long time, we thought Jupiter had the most moons in our solar system, but not too long ago, a little less than a year or so, we actually found 20 more moons, and now Saturn officially has the most. It has 82 moons. So the most in our solar system. Now, that doesn't mean that Jupiter doesn't have more. It just means that we haven't found them yet. All right, so that is our quick video tour of the solar system. So I'm actually going to take a few minutes to go back through. I think we probably have about 100 comments at this point. Again, really, really excited. I'm going to try to do a quick rewind and see if I can answer some of these. So let's see what we got here. So as I'm doing the rewind here, I saw, when did the volcano on Mars last erupt? We don't know for sure, but millions of years ago. It has been a really long time since the volcano on Mars has last erupted. I don't know the exact date, but yeah, really, really long time ago. I saw a question about the rings. Why does Saturn have rings? Where do the rings come from? Basically, rings of a planet come from a moon that actually got a little too close to the planet, and the planet kind of pulled the moon apart into thousands and millions of little pieces, and just naturally, the pieces form into the shape of a ring, a flat ring. A lot like the shape of our solar system as our planets formed orbiting around our sun. So Mars actually has 2 moons. They're shaped like potatoes. They're great. And it turns out that Mars in the future most likely also will have rings. Not our Earth though. Our moon actually won't be coming towards the Earth. It's actually getting away from us very, very, very slowly. One of the first questions I saw was a great question, and it said, why is Pluto not a planet anymore? This is a really, really great question. Basically, when we first discovered Pluto, we didn't know that much about it. It's very, very far away. We launched a spacecraft called New Horizons, and it took about 9 years to fly out to Pluto. So basically, as we kept studying Pluto more and more, we saw better pictures of it. We were able to find out more information. And basically, a planet needs 3 things to be called a planet. It has to be going around the sun. Check. A planet has to be large enough that it naturally forms a sphere. So check. Pluto's a sphere. But the third and most important one is that a planet can be the only planet in its pathway. So I think of this a lot like cars going down a highway. A planet can be the only car in its lane. It can have moons going around it or people in its car, but it cannot have any other cars with it. And as we learn more about Pluto, we found other cars in its lane, other objects a lot like Pluto. And basically, if you really want Pluto to be a planet, then every asteroid in our asteroid belt is also a planet. So we can have lots of planets. If you can make your own definition, however you want to define them. Most importantly, though, I think Pluto's interesting, and we should keep studying it. See, is Saturn bigger than the sun? No planets are bigger than the sun. No planets are really as big as stars. I think though the smallest star we found is only about 20% bigger than Jupiter. So planets are always going to be smaller than stars. A day on Jupiter, good question. A day on Jupiter is about 10 hours, so it's going very fast. Like I mentioned, really fast. How far is Saturn from Earth? Saturn is about 900 million miles from the sun. Again, I don't remember exactly how far it is from Earth. That does change because Earth and Saturn are both going around the sun. So sometimes we're closer, sometimes we're a lot further away, but about 900 million miles from the sun. So hope that helps. Good question. Is the sun a planet? So the sun is a star, and stars and planets are 2 different objects. Most stars, we think, pretty much have at least 1 planet going around them. So our sun is a star. Why are planets round? That's a really great physics question. It's just kind of the natural way that particles clump together. When things kind of form with the very beginning of our solar system, there are a lot of tiny pieces, and as things were swirling around, pieces tend to kind of come together and clump into these spherical shapes. And that's pretty much, they just get big enough to form what we call a planet. And then any things that were left over, that's what we have is potentially moons and all of those asteroids and comets and things that are left over in the solar system. Great question. How many planets have rings? So I'm actually going to throw that out to my audience. See if you remember or learned how many planets in our solar system have rings around them. Good question. Let's see. If the rings came from a moon, does that mean the moon was made of ice? Probably, yeah. A lot of moons out, especially in the farther reaches of our solar system, have ice in them. You know, there's quite a few moons around the gas giant planets where we think there's oceans underneath the ice. And that could be one of the places that we're most expecting to find life in our solar system. So great question, great question. How many dwarf planets are there? Awesome. Yeah, so there's 5 dwarf planets that we know of right now. Pluto, of course, is one of those. Let's see, Jupiter's Great Red Spot. When was it discovered? That's a question from Martha. It was about 400 years ago, pretty much when we discovered Jupiter to begin with. That is when we found the Great Red Spot. How thick is Saturn's rings? Brandy, awesome question. The thickness of Saturn's rings is about the length of a football field. So it's actually pretty thin considering how large that Saturn is. So those rings, like I said, they're very wide. They're thousands of miles across. So kind of stretched out into that ring shape. Good question. So is there any life on the moon? So as we know of right now, there's no life anywhere that we know of except for Earth. Basically, when we're talking about trying to find life out in the solar system or anywhere, we're trying to find worlds that have water, that have carbon, because all life we know of is based from carbon, and some form of energy, right? So this life could get fuel and different things like that. So as of now, we don't know of any worlds that have all 3 of those things. We are finding planets that orbit other stars called exoplanets, and places where, like I mentioned, on Mars, there might have been water in the past. There might still be water on different moons and underneath the ground on Mars and different places. So this is really how we are trying to figure out if there is or was life somewhere else. It's one of the big questions out there in astronomy. Do all planets have a magnetic field? They don't. I'm gonna say no. Mostly planets that are still active in some way will have a magnetic field. If so, they might be very weak. Jupiter's magnetic field is very, very strong because of that fast spinning wind. They're really helping to generate the magnetic field on there. Oh, awesome, Alice. Yeah, 4 planets have rings. Great job, all of you who are answering that. My ring question out there. Why is our solar system called the Milky Way? Again, sorry if I'm skipping over your questions. We've got a lot in here. I'm just answering ones that are kind of jumping out at me. And like I mentioned, if I did skip over yours, we will definitely get back and make sure to answer your questions there. So our galaxy is called the Milky Way because a long time ago, back in Latin, if you translate it, it means road of milk. It kind of looks like someone spilled milk all over the sky. Let's see. So Veronica, I got your daughter saying hi. Hi there. The Earth is about 93 million miles away from the sun. Awesome question. Let's see. I'm gonna scoot down to the bottom. I think I will take a couple more questions. I'll probably take about for 1 more minute, and then, like I mentioned, please don't feel like you need to stop asking questions. We'll get back to you with answers. The nearest star to our sun. That's a great question. The closest star, it's in a system of them. It's called the Alpha Centauri system. It's about 4 light years away from us. So light year, the reason that we use things and different words and units of distance is because space is really far apart. 1 light year is about 6 trillion miles. So the nearest star is about 4.5 of those away. So still very far, but they are the Alpha Centauri stars. Melanie, are there different universes? That's a great question. I don't have an answer for you. There could be. We don't have any evidence saying yes. We don't have any evidence saying no. That's a really great question that I encourage you to keep asking. We all want to know the answer as well. What's beyond what we can see? So part of the reason we don't know that is we can only see so far, right? Light does take time to travel through space, so we really can only see so far away. So as soon as we learn to see past faster than the speed of light, maybe that's when we'll be able to answer those questions. Right. So, I'm going to end with this question. How many stars are there in the universe? If you take every grain of sand on every beach in the entire world, there are more stars than that in the universe. So not a true number. And again, we know there's about 200 billion stars in our Milky Way galaxy, and there's trillions of galaxies out there in the universe. And if we assume that galaxies are much like ours and other galaxies that we can observe, we can guess, we can hypothesize, we can use math to figure out just how many stars we think that there are in the universe. And there's more than there probably is a number to tell you. So again, thank you so much for joining me here talking about the three planets. Try if you're a morning person and you can get outside to see the southeastern sky in the morning for pretty much all of April. I encourage you to try and spot some of these three planets. Again, if I didn't get to your question, I'm so sorry, and we definitely will make sure that an answer will be commented back to you. Thanks for joining me learning about our planets. If you're interested in more activities and some science at home content, I do encourage you to follow our LSE Facebook page and different social media to learn all about LSE in the house, which is our effort to bring you science content at home. So I hope you all have a great day, and thanks again.